what do you feel you accomplished tonight?
Well, one, just listening to constituents is important. We may disagree on a number of items, but it's important that I get out here and just hear what their thought processes are. A level of angst out there, and most of it centers around the Health Care Act. And that is because it is a very personal issue to a lot of people. It's an emotional issue. It is one of those top line issues that touches everyone in all aspects of their livelihood. So I understand that. We want to make sure that I'm looking at the bills that are proposed and making sure that they'll work for most Iowans.
In regards to the Ryan/House plan as we know it, you expressed support up there, I think, for continuing some sort of subsidy for people.
There is a tax credit that is available.
And that's good enough for you?
It is. I'm still looking at that because I do have concerns about making sure we have the right supports in place for the people that truly need it. So those that are at the lower end of that income level. So I want to make sure that those tax credits are actually working for our hardworking Iowans that are struggling to make ends meet. Does that do that sufficiently right now? I don't know that it does. So I want to take a look at that. We'll see what the final form is and make sure that we're focusing on the people that really need this.
Senator, the issue of Medicaid came up several times today, and you expressed, it sounded like some support for the Medicaid expansion we've seen under the Affordable Care Act. What are you looking for in this new bill as it regards Medicaid?
Well, again, that we're focusing on the people that truly do need the assistance. Now, how that will translate into a final version of the bill, again, I'm going to have to sort through it because I can't tell you whether I'm going to support it or not support it today because I just don't know what the final bill is going to look at. But we do know that there are 150,000 Iowans that went through Medicaid expansion. These are those folks that might be working jobs, but they just can't quite make ends meet and purchase insurance on their own. So they've been absorbed into that Medicaid system. So we want to weigh that moving forward and make sure that it's going to work for our hardworking Iowans.
I asked a couple people in Cedar Rapids after your event up there, you say you're undecided. They think these are Democratic voters. They think you're just gonna go along and support whatever is put in front of you by the Republican leadership. I mean, are you legitimately undecided? Is there a possibility you can vote against this?
I am legitimately undecided on this. And you will hear that from a number of my colleagues as well. We want to make sure that one, it's sustainable and we're moving forward. We know that Obamacare is not sustainable, but we want to make sure that there is a good, stable transition period so that we're not losing people between the cracks is kind of the phrase that's been used, and making sure that we have affordable coverage because right now we don't have affordable coverage. So those are some pretty big concerns that I have. We're going to have to iron that out.
Senator, there's been a lot of talk about with Obamacare and then with the Ryan plan about covering health insurance. What talk is there amongst Republicans about actually tackling ways to lower health care costs?
And that, I think, is getting to the very heart of this as well, is that we talk a lot about insurance coverage, but we're not addressing the costs of actual health care. So what are those hidden expenses that are out there? We heard one lady that was frustrated with prescription medicine costs. Those are all things that we need to look at. We need to take a holistic approach. That is not necessarily being addressed in this particular bill, but it is something that we need to explore.
One of the things in this bill is that it would allow insurance companies to charge up to 66% more to older, sicker patients. How does that control costs?
Well, it's proposed right now. It's going back to the way it was before Obamacare. The proposal is instead of the 3-to-1 ratio, it would be back to the 5-to-1 ratio, but then the states could make that final determination on what ratio they would actually use.
You also expressed some concern about the budget plan that the president proposed in regards to school lunch, in regards to SNAP. Do you have a coalition of people who are unwilling to do the things that he's proposed in regards to USDA spending?
I think we all understand that we need to tighten our belts a little bit moving forward because we are $20 trillion in debt. But I think this will be a huge push for the members of the Midwestern Coalition especially. If you look at Iowa, we do have a lot of children that are food insecure. And so this is something that I will be watching out for. I think that other members will feel the same as we go through the Farm Bill. It is very important that we make sure our children are being fed. We need to do that.
Senator, people were bringing up the idea of Donald Trump's connection to the wiretapping incident that he was claiming here, and then also Russia with their involvement in the election and in his a few people in his administration. I mean, what are your thoughts on those? And people are upset about it.
Well, one, the administration, when they come out with an allegation, they need to have the proof behind it. They need to be able to show that an incident actually occurred. I don't know that we've seen that yet. So they really need to be very careful about making allegations that they can't back up. You know, maybe that'll be clarified in the future. Ties to Russia, there are investigations going on. I have confidence in the House and Senate Intel committees. So they're made up of bipartisan members of Congress. So we hope that it turns out okay and that there wasn't any connection. But if there was, they are going to find out.
Do you feel President Trump should apologize to the Obama administration?
Again, we'll see how this shakes out in the upcoming days. If there is information that they haven't released, but I just think the president needs to be more careful with the allegations.
You had also mentioned President Trump should release his tax returns. You said all you can do is ask him. There's nothing you can do congressionally. There isn't something that could be done from the House and Senate to get him to release
I don't
those?
know that we would have the support necessarily to do that. I haven't talked to other members of Congress about it, but I do think that he should release his
Would you
taxes.
support Congress moving forward to strong arm him to do that?
I think we can push him a little bit, you know, but whether he does it or not, that's a really good question.
How about going forward, would you support presidents from now on to have to release them?
Again, I haven't talked to other members of Congress. I don't know why they wouldn't want to.
How do you feel after today, these two meetings? Do you feel a little bit of a disconnect with your constituency, or do you think these crowds in larger cities were loaded with people, you know, who oppose Republican ideas, or what do you make of all this?
I think generally when people are okay with the way their government is working, they're not calling, they're not coming out. What we wanted to hear from are those people that maybe really do have those concerns and just understand where they're coming from. When I am out going across the state of Iowa, I hear different concerns too. I spoke with a couple of women yesterday at a small business. One of them is a single mom with 2 young boys that are headed off to college. She chooses to pay the penalty because she can't afford Obamacare. She said it's either make the choice of sending my children to college or pay for this insurance, which I'm gonna be paying out of pocket anyway. The other woman explained that she's paying, it's just her, an individual plan. She pays about $400 a month with a $9,000 deductible. And she said, I feel ridiculous doing this.
So how do
because
you
I'm
balance
paying
those
for everything.
anecdotes with, you know, I don't know, thousands of people, I guess, or hundreds at least, that showed up at these two meetings that really disagreed with what you were saying on that issue and several others? I mean, it seemed like.
No, and again, we didn't specifically ask the people in the audience, are you on the exchanges? I don't know how many people in the audience are, or how many are on Medicare, how many were specifically on Medicaid with the expansion, or how many might actually have employer-provided health insurance. So we need to understand what the makeup of Iowa is, and then take a look at whatever plan is presented and see if that actually does work. But one, we want to make sure their coverage is affordable, and right now it's not.
Would the
Senator
Trump agenda have an easier time in Congress if he wasn't tweeting at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I would love it if he'd just put the phone down. Just put the phone down. We need to stay focused. In Congress, we are working really hard. A number of us are out trying to hear what's going on in these communities. We want to know what's affecting daily lives in our home states, and we need to be able to focus on that.
And you mentioned that, you know, some of your staff were taking notes with what the people were saying. after these meetings, you might have more, what are you gonna do with those notes when you get back to Washington?
We'll sort through them. There are a number of cards as well that they have filled out with questions or concerns, and then we'll respond back either with phone calls or letters, kind of the position that we have, the thoughts that they have shared with us. But it is a great way to kind of see what's going on, in their minds too. And who knows, a number of those cards may say, stay the course because we don't want Obamacare. So we'll see what they say and get back to those constituents.
Okay, in addition to,
And then let's go over here. You had a question?
Well, you just mentioned that you wanted the president to just not tweet at 3 in the morning, wanted him to put the phone down. Have members of Congress voiced their concerns about how much outcry there is because he keeps doing that? I mean, it started in the election and it still goes on.
Yes, certainly. But that is one thing too, that I think a lot of the public, maybe members of Congress don't necessarily appreciate it, but a lot of the public, that's why they support him, is because he is very outspoken. So the president will do what the president will do.
Can I ask
Senator
you-
Ernst,
Yeah.
USDA Secretary nominee Sonny Perdue finally got a confirmation hearing date. What are you going to ask him as a member of the Senate Agriculture Committee?
Yes, and this is a very important confirmation for all of us across the Midwest because this confirmation will impact us greatly. So we do have a date. It's set for this next Thursday. So we'll hear from him in front of our Agricultural Committee. And the things that I want to ask him, where is his support for renewable energy, such as our biodiesel and corn ethanol, because that is really big for Iowans. We also want to hear about the CRP program, which we found is not being utilized the way that it was originally intended. We have a lot of farms out there that are being put into CRP subsidized by the government. It's productive land that should be out there. The CRP was originally supposed to protect vulnerable lands. So I want to ask him about that, what he thinks about that program. And then we also want to know that crop insurance is going to be available in the future for our farmers as well. So those are some of the big topics that we want to talk about specifically that deal with agriculture.
So I have another Agriculture Committee question for you. I think it was Senator Stabenow today sent out a press release concerned about the bird flu and asking whether or not the USDA was prepared to react on a larger scale if needed. And I think part of her question was prefaced on the fact that I think the Trump administration has put a freeze on hiring of new employees, and the concern partially is that there might not be enough staff if this thing spread and became more widespread.
Right, and Ranking Member Stabenow has a great point because we have seen a couple incidents of the bird flu now in Tennessee. It's really concerning. They're very closely located, and we don't want to see that spread. We saw what it did in Iowa a couple years ago. It absolutely devastated our poultry operations and our economy. So we will continue to push the administration. I think that the USDA is adequately prepared for this. There were a lot of lessons learned coming out of Iowa and Minnesota after the HPAI incident a couple years ago. Our states know best how to handle those situations as well, and I know those best practices will be shared with other states.
We've got time for one more.
Senator, do you think, we heard several of the same questions in Cedar Rapids as we heard here, and we also heard several people insisting I'm not paid to be here. Do you feel like the anger that we saw from, I guess, the majority of people is an organic development or something else? Is it organized, or is it just people coming out?
I know they're not paid to be here, and I've never made that accusation. I understand their anger, but I do think there is a level of organization through different groups, maybe not all cohesive, but similar situations where they're holding up the agree, disagree signs, or you're lying, or things like that. So there is some coaching out there, whether it's just shared through Facebook or whatever, who knows. But their concerns are valid concerns. We want to address them. So we're listening out there, and hopefully they got something out of this. It was more of a listening post. I wanted to hear some of their thoughts. The cost going back to hospitals, that's one that came up in Cedar Rapids and here. That's one that we're really not talking about. So I'm glad when I'm picking up new pieces of information, it makes me better informed. So I can take that back and we can delve into it and find out if there are solutions. Thank you, everybody.
Senator.
Thank you.